Um, so I will note that there may be some participants in the training this evening that are not customers of Las Virgenes. So the information that I'm going to be providing in particular, and then also for some of the slides that the Rachio staff have are particular for here at Las Virgenes Municipal Water District. So please look to your local water provider for conservation information if you are not a customer of Las Virgenes, because this information may or may not apply to you. So I just want to put a little bit of a caveat there. I will also say that there's probably some participants that are attending this evening that are not Rachio customers, or perhaps don't even have a smart controller. So hopefully this is going to be a good introduction to you for the benefits of a smart controller. And then also there will be some similarity and overlap between the different controllers as well. So this might be informative and helpful for those customers that don't have Rachio controllers either. So if you could, Danielle, let's go ahead and advance to the first slide. So yeah, so in the interest of providing some context about water use here in the district, we've done a fairly detailed study as to how water is used here in the district. And in this pie chart, it illustrates that pretty profoundly. And you'll see that by far largest use of water here in the district is irrigation. That's about 69%. Now, certainly that's going to vary from customer to customer. It's also going to vary during different times of the year. But on average, we have customers that are using about 69 to 70% of their potable water for outdoor irrigation. So certainly, if you are looking for areas to conserve water, that would be one of the first places that we would encourage you to look. However, that being said, there are lots of opportunities for you to conserve water, both indoors and outdoors. This presentation obviously is going to be focusing on your outdoor water use and how you can use a tool like a Rachio controller to help become more efficient in your outdoor water use. So if you could advance to the next slide, Danielle. Thanks. And so this is a slide that we often see episodically here in the state of California. This one is particularly concerning to us just because of the extent of the exceptional and extreme drought conditions that the state of California is currently experiencing. We are potentially entering into our third year of drought, which is very concerning to us. And again, underscores the points that I was making in the previous slide about the importance for us to look for areas for us to conserve water, because the next slide, if you could, Danielle, is a pretty telling slide for us. Now, I'm not going to certainly get into all of the highlights of this information. This is a water supply conditions report provided by Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. This is the water wholesaler that we purchase our water from. And what I will draw your attention to is over here on the left-hand side of the slide, gives an indication as to our water storage at our critical reservoirs in the state water system. And so up at the very top there is Lake Oroville. Due to the nature of where we're located within Metropolitan's distribution area, we do receive virtually all of our water from the State Water Project, which is not to say that we can't also receive water from the Colorado project. However, most of our water, just by virtue of where we're located, does come from Lake Oroville. And you'll notice that the storage in Lake Oroville at the time of this report was about 22%. Going down the river here, we get to our next stop at the San Luis Reservoir, which is about 11 to 10% of storage. And that's as we entered into this water year, the beginning of October. And it also indicates or provides us with the sad information that this is the lowest water storage that we've ever had in the state of California as we enter into another water year. And so we have heard strong indications from Department of Water Resources that they are going to be imposing mandatory water restrictions across the state of California, and some of which we may not have seen before in the state of California, which is the reason why we as Water District have advanced through our water shortage contingency plan. We implemented our stage 1 of that plan back in June 1st in response to the worsening water situations at that time. We then responded to Governor Newsom's call for a voluntary 15% reduction back in July 8th of 2021. So the board of directors here at Las Virgenes on July 20th elevated our water contingency shortage plan to stage 2, which called for 20% voluntary reduction of water use consistent with Governor Newsom's 15% reduction. And again, due to the worsening conditions with storage as we entered into the water year this year, today our board escalated the water shortage contingency plan to stage 3, which is going to require a 25% reduction in outdoor water use. And so I have asked Danielle and Dane to specifically address the potential for, well, the actuality of the 25% reduction in outdoor water use and how it is that you can use the controller to help facilitate getting you to that reduction in outdoor irrigation. However, if you can advance to the next slide, Danielle, if we do hear the news from Department of Water Resources that we are in a worsening situation and that we get to the point to which we will have a zero allocation from the state water system, which will be a first for the state of California, that would require us to elevate the water shortage contingency plan to stage 4. Stage 4 is a critical water shortage because the zero allocation would indicate that we're going to be provided enough water just to provide for health and safety water situations, which would be principally your indoor water use. And if we do in fact elevate to stage 4, outdoor irrigation would be effectively prohibited. And so I've asked Dane and Danielle to address that situation. The zero allocation announcement could come as early as early December. However, the full implementation of that directive is not likely to occur until the beginning of next year, the early part of next year, with the hope that we do begin to see more precipitation and hopefully heavier rain events so that we can avoid needing to move into that condition. But we do want to share that information with folks so that we're not catching anybody off guard. But we also want to show people how it is that they can use the tool that we're going to be discussing tonight to help reduce their water usage outdoor, and then also to begin to prioritize which areas of the garden or your landscape that are most critical to you. And so with that, Danielle, I'd like to turn it back over to you so that you can start talking to customers about how they can use your controller to help become more efficient with their water use.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining tonight. We really appreciate it. I know it's Tuesday night and I'm sure there's, the World Series is on. I don't know if you guys have, a team that you want to cheer for, but we're really happy that you're all here with us. My name is Danielle. I am the Senior Manager of Utility. I work with utilities coast to coast, helping with programs and conservation efforts to make sure utilities, the residents in the cities are doing the best with their outdoor water use. And I have with me tonight, Dane Berry, who is our Senior Manager of our customer support team. And I will let you, Dane, introduce yourself real quickly.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dane Berry. I'm the Senior Manager of the customer support team. I apologize for the dogs in the background. I've been working with Rachio, running the support team since May of 2015. So I've been here for quite a while and I know everything about our product. So if you have any questions, we'll get to those at the end. I'll be happy to answer those.
Yes, he really does. He is fantastic. Yeah, and as Dave had said, if you can try to we will have questions, Q&A at the end, so if you can keep your questions to the end. Of course, if you have questions that you might forget, you can always put in the chat and we can try to answer them as we go through, or we can answer them at the end. If we don't get to your question, please feel free to email us. It's lvmwd@rachio.com, but that slide will come up here in a little bit. So the topics today, we're going to go over what is Rachio. We're going to discuss the smart yard. How is Rachio different? We're going to discuss installing the Rachio controller, our schedules, the app, why the zones are important. And then we will review the current program that Rachio and Las Virgenes have offering right now for your residents. And then of course, Q&A. So Rachio. So again, some of you might already have a Rachio, so this might be old news, but for anyone here that is not familiar with Rachio, we have created a smart sprinkler controller that allows you to water your yard pretty much effortlessly and automatically. You can create smart schedules tailored specifically for your yard. If you are doing the installation yourself, we are a DIY product, which you can install in 30 minutes or less. The schedules water specifically the right amount for your plants and your needs, and we have seen savings anywhere from 20 to 50% on your monthly outdoor water bill. And we are EPA WaterSense certified. Some stats right now, obviously this number is always increasing, but we have saved over 41.5 billion gallons of water and counting, which is a huge number. During the hot summer months, customers have seen an average of 6,000 gallons of water saved. And we have 93% of our customers that would recommend Rachio to a neighbor. And overall, customers have given us 4.7-star reviews. These are just some quotes that influencers have written about us. You know, influencers really like our product because of its ability to react to weather data. It's really simple to use. It makes everything more efficient, and it reacts to real-time weather data specific to one's own geographic location. And here are some customer reviews. It's good for your wallet and good for the environment. The app is easy to use and it works great. And it's pretty much a set it and forget it application, and it works great. We do have integrations with some smart devices, including Google Assistant and Alexa. This is actually pretty interesting to how many users use this feature. We've heard stories in the past, you know, if a neighbor's dog is on the yard, they can do, they can say, hey, Alexa, run zone 3, and the water will go on and the dog will leave their yard, which is good for them. So these are some great extras that we have with our product. And now next, the Smart Yard. So you may have noticed over the years, the sprinkler controllers have really changed and adapted. So the old controller were the knobs, kind of old school, you always had to run out to the garage or in the rain or, whatever it might be, and modify your schedule or turn it off. Those controllers were really created for the pro in mind, having the pro come to your house, they would have access and they can make the changes that they see fit. What Rachio's goal is to make irrigation easier and much more customer centric. So you are in control of your yard and the settings. So now you can do everything from your phone, and you no longer have to run out when the rain's coming and turn the sprinkler off. You can do it right from it does it automatically for you now, but if anything needed to change, you could always do it from your phone. So with the current program that Las Virgenes is offering, there is a free installation component. So if you do choose to do the program that Las Virgenes is offering, you don't have to worry about installation. However, if you do decide to go your own route and go buy the Rachio somewhere else, you can install it in 3 easy steps. We have our pre-installation, and this is really where you have you get to start the installation process. It's important to check your Wi-Fi signal before you take anything off the wall or put anything on the wall. We recommend at least 2 bars from where your controller will be. So for example, if your controller is going to be installed in your garage, simply walk out to your garage with your phone. If your phone has 2 bars, then you should be good to go, and you can continue with the installation. The next step is the hardware installation. It's really important to test your old controller first before you remove it from the wall. This will ensure that everything was working perfectly beforehand, and if anything was wrong, you can fix it before you do the new installation. The third step is the software configuration. This is where you make the Rachio completely yours. We walk you through the process of setting up your zones and scheduling to make sure the settings are tailored to your yard. We do have 2 videos here. Again, for the sake of time, we're going to skip over these. There are links at the end of this presentation, but everything can be found on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and search Rachio, you'll be able to find all the videos with installation app, anything that you might need. So our weather intelligence and weather intelligence plus features are pretty amazing. We leverage over 300,000 weather stations to get the most accurate forecast possible for your location. One of the best features with our weather intelligence plus is what we call self-healing. So sometimes weather stations do stop working. If the controller, if this happens to the controller is notified, and the controller will automatically find the next best weather station, so your yard will not skip a beat. Once the weather station comes back on, your controller will automatically connect back to the original station you had programmed. And I'm going to turn it over to Dane to review some of our Rachio Smart schedules.
Thanks, Danielle. So we'll get into an overview of the Rachio schedules, and then we'll talk about each schedule type. And shortly, we will take a bit of a break just to talk about some of those strategies that you can use to minimize your water use. So with our Rachio schedules, we have 3 schedule types. We've got flex monthly, which will adjust monthly based on historical weather data. The watering duration and the frequency will change each month. This schedule is more predictable because you can actually see how the schedule is changing month to month. Our next flexible schedule is the flex daily schedule, and this adjusts daily based on soil moisture. We are virtually monitoring the soil moisture in each zone to determine when each zone needs to water. So those zones do water independently. And then there is our fixed schedule, which waters when you want it to. So you can set it for specific days of the week. You can set it for a specific interval, and it will water on the days that you set, and it will water at the times that you tell it to water. Those are the differences between our fixed schedule and our flex schedules. As the flex daily schedules do change either daily or month to month, depending on what you have. But the fixed schedule will water on fixed intervals. All of our schedules work in combination with weather intelligence. This is a big component of what makes our schedule smart. All of the weather intelligence features listed here, the rain skip, freeze skip, wind skip, saturation skip, and seasonal shift, these are all enabled by default on our fixed schedule, which makes that fixed schedule a smart schedule. And they are customizable. With our rain skip, as an example, you can set that threshold anywhere from precipitation of 1/16 of an inch all the way up to an inch. You know, if you are trying to conserve water, it is best to set it at a 1/16 or a quarter of an inch. That way it ensures that it's not going to water when it rains. Setting it up higher to 1 inch means that you're going to need to get a lot of rain before it actually skips. But these weather intelligence features are enabled by default on the fixed schedule, as well as the flex monthly, and a lot of these features are kind of baked into the flex daily schedule. So the first schedule that we'll talk about is the fixed schedule. This is most analogous to the older model controllers. So if you are currently using an older controller, this is a schedule you might be more familiar with. But it is still a smart schedule because it does have the weather intelligence features that I mentioned earlier. This is a schedule that is also very compatible with high water restrictions, especially if you're only allowed to water on specific days of the week. When you set this schedule up, you can set it to water only on those specific days, or if you do have the time restrictions as well, you're only allowed to water on specific days and specific times of the day. The fixed schedule will let you do that. This is constantly, like every single day, before every schedule run, it is monitoring the weather to see if it is going to rain. It's looking at the rain in the past 24 hours and the next 24 hours. And if that precipitation does meet that threshold, then the schedule will skip. It'll also skip freezing temps or high winds as well. And then we're going to get into, we can go to the next slide. So we are going to look at some app visualizations of how to adjust these schedules under specific watering restrictions. So the video on the left is the first one that we're going to go through. And before we actually go through it, I do want to explain that this is the adjustment of a flex monthly schedule. And this is also going to be how you would adjust a flex daily schedule if you are watering it. Now, I'm going to show you how to get into the advanced settings, which can seem kind of scary because they're advanced, but we are only going to modify one setting, and that's the crop coefficient. And I can tell you that crop coefficient only impacts one aspect of the schedule, and that's the frequency. So the goal of this is we're going to adjust the crop coefficient down. We're going to decrease the crop coefficient so that we remove some watering days as we try to adjust for restrictions. So the first thing that we're going to do from the home screen is hit the irrigation tab. And I'd like to check the calendar out at first. That calendar is a good feature, so we can see how many days that the schedule is watering on this Flex Monthly. And now that I want to adjust the zones, this is a cool season grass schedule, so I only have 2 cool season grass zones. I'm going to go into the first one, and then I'm going to select Edit. Then I'm going to go down to Advanced at the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to go to the crop coefficient, and I'm just going to adjust this by 25%. It was at 80. I'm going to put it down at 60. Then I'm going to hit Done. You always have to hit Done. And I do the same thing by going back to the next zone. I go to Edit, Advanced, and then I adjust that crop coefficient down. So it's very simple to do this. And the more you lower that crop coefficient, the less often it's going to water. The great thing is you can always go back to the calendar and then see how that schedule changes. And then on the next video, this is a fixed schedule. So if we wanted to adjust our fixed schedule to make it water less, the best way to do that is to adjust the durations, and you'll see how easy it is to adjust the durations on a fixed schedule. So we go to that irrigation tab. This time we go to schedules. Then we select the schedule, and there's durations. So we select durations. Right now it's at 20 minutes. I'm going to reduce that, the total watering duration at the top, down to 14 minutes, which is a little over 25% of that. And just by doing that, I'm going to, this schedule was set to water for 240 minutes. I have now, with that adjustment, it's only going to water for 128 minutes this month. So those are pretty simple to do. If you are running a Flex Monthly schedule, that crop coefficient, if you need it to water less, you can just continue to adjust it down, and that frequency will change. You can go to that calendar screen and see those water drop icons, which will show you the exact frequency that it's watering for that month. And the next thing that I'd like to demonstrate, one thing that I've noticed in working with our customers from all over the country, from all over the US and Canada, actually, is that sometimes multiple schedules for single zones will get set up. And you might not be aware of it. You may set up an additional schedule during the summer. I see an AM schedule and a PM schedule, something running in the morning and the evening, which a lot of times isn't necessary. So if you notice that your schedules are running a lot or you are using a lot of water, it's always good to check and make sure that an additional schedule hasn't been set up, that you really only have one schedule for your specific zones. So go ahead and play, Danielle. So we go to the irrigation tab, and then we go to calendar. And if you look on there, you'll see that some of those days have numbers. That's how many schedules are running that day. I'm going to make it easier to identify what schedules are running when by changing the color. So you can change the color of your schedule so that it appears different on that calendar. And then I'm going to change it on another schedule. And always click done. And then when I go back to the calendar, it makes it a lot easier to tell which schedules are running. And again, there are those numbers on there. And you can click on each day and it'll show you the number of schedules that are running. So I'm going to delete a couple of these schedules to make sure that I only have one schedule running for my grass zone. To do that, I'm going to go to schedules. I'm going to click on the schedule that I want to delete. First thing, you can disable it with the enable toggle, and then you can select delete. And then I'm going to do that with that second schedule. Just click on it, disable it, and then delete it. And now I'm back to just one schedule for my grass zones, which is all they need. And then as we move into the winter months, it might not be necessary to water. You might not be able to water based on certain watering restrictions. So a great thing is you can easily prevent schedules from watering by putting the controller into standby mode. When you have the app open, all you have to do is go to the More tab in the lower right corner of the screen. And right at the top is a toggle. You just press that toggle, and it will go into standby mode. When the controller is in standby mode, it will not water until it's taken out of standby mode. And that can also be toggled off from the home screen once that's turned on. So that's just a really easy way to prevent your watering schedules from running. So one of the things that's exceptionally important is to make sure that your zones are configured correctly. You can see that the advanced zone settings, that crop coefficient is really important in how how often the schedule runs. So all of those advanced settings are actually controlled by the default settings, the basic settings, which is your vegetation type, your soil, your nozzle type. So just make sure that all of those settings are correct. It's also important to separate different crop types into different schedules. Different plants have different watering needs. So if you have a grass zone and shrub zones, the grass zone should be on one schedule and the shrub zones should be on another schedule. Otherwise, those shrubs will be watered at the same time that the grass is. And seasonal shift is a great feature, which is on by default. That is going to reduce your watering as the months get cooler. So the next schedule that I'd like to talk about is Flex Monthly. Flex Monthly is going to update month to month to adjust for the temperatures based on historical weather data. So the schedule will water slightly more as it gets warmer, and then it will start watering less as it gets colder. You do end up saving more with Flex Monthly because it does water less often than you are typically going to set it with a fixed schedule. With a fixed schedule, you might set it to water a couple times a week, 3 times a week. The Flex Monthly schedule by default waters less. It does water for durations that are a little bit longer. This schedule is completely predictable because we're using historical weather data. If you want to know how the schedule is changing month to month, on that calendar section of the irrigation tab, you can just scroll up and you'll see the next month and you'll see those water drops and be able to tell how often that schedule is going to water that month. So the tips for success with this schedule is just like the fixed schedule, it's configure the zones correctly. Make sure you have the right vegetation type, the right nozzle type, the right soil. You do want to separate different crop types into different schedules because, again, the different plants have different watering needs. You can look at those future months to see exactly how that frequency is changing. And now you do know how to change the frequency with the crop coefficient. So if you think that it's watering more often than it should, you can adjust that crop coefficient down in the zone's advanced settings, and then you'll be able to see that schedule water less. And then there is weather intelligence set by default on that schedule. And it also uses a seasonal shift as it will be changing month to month as the temperatures change. Now, the last schedule type we're going to talk about is Flex Daily schedules. These schedules are, they do change daily and they water each zone independently. What we're doing is looking at your zone's soil moisture levels based on the zone settings that you input, the vegetation type, the soil type, the nozzle type. So we know how much water is being put in. We know how much water the soil can hold. And then we know how much water is being lost through the plant's use and evaporation based on the real-time weather monitoring. A good way to think about this without getting too deep into it is we're kind of looking at the zones as a bucket, and we know that that bucket can hold a certain amount of water. We know that based on the plant's use of the water and the evaporation, that we know how fast that water is going to deplete, and we also know that once it depletes to a certain level, it needs to be filled back up again. So there's a lot more to it. That's a real, it's a very simplified version of it. It is important to note that just like the Flex Monthly, this schedule waters less often than you might typically be used to. The individual durations are longer than what you're used to, but it is doing its job. So your plants should be watered less frequently for a little longer periods of time. And the tips for success: configure the zones, add weather intelligence to prevent freezing and windy weather runs. You can only see, because it is based on daily readings, you can only see how the schedule is going to water for the next 14 days, which is as far out as the forecast will go. Each zone is watering independently, so it doesn't water like the fixed or the Flex Monthly. You don't need to separate vegetation type. All of your zones can go on the Flex Daily schedule. It can be a little complex trying to keep track of all of the zones. So if the Flex Daily is something that you want to get into, you want to try, because it is the smartest schedule type, we do recommend the one zone approach, where you can run just one zone on Flex Daily, keeping the others on a fixed or a Flex Monthly, as those are a little more predictable. It's a good approach to take, because then you can see how it waters less often, and you can get used to it. We also have some great support material at support.rachio.com, as well as a community forum where we have a lot of different Flex Daily users who are providing their best practices and their tips for running the schedule successfully.
Hey, Dane, if I could just interject real quickly, I just wanted to let folks know that we are recording the presentation. So if they're trying to keep up in real time with their own controller, we will make this available on our website so that they can use it for future review. I did see a question in the Q&A, so I just wanted to let everybody know that they don't need to keep up on their controller. This will be available for them after the presentation for their review.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave.
Perfect. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, those were recorded videos. So it was just, we were talking through it, but thank you.
Yep, especially when we were walking through how to lower your schedule's frequency, your duration for watering restrictions. You can definitely go back to the video and pause on that. And then we will have some support. You can always reach out to our support team if you need precise help. So, just to put it all together, that common thread is that the zone settings should be correct. So just make sure that those are correct. And also, if you're using a fixed or a Flex Monthly schedule, make sure you separate your vegetation types, because again, a shrub does not need to be watered as often as grass does. And if those are on the same schedule, then you will be watering that shrub as often as you are watering the grass, which isn't good for the shrub and is wasteful. So those are our schedules. They're really great. Any schedule that you choose is going to work pretty good. I do recommend either the fixed or the Flex Monthly schedules to start.
Thank you, Dane. Now I'm going to go over the Rachio app. So when you launch your Rachio app, the home screen, our team has really made that first screen a place where everything can be at your fingertips. It's really a great place to enable the quick run if you need to do that. You can check on your schedules. You can even see how much water you're saving. It will show you the scheduled amount of runtime and what actually has happened. The irrigation tab, though, is really where you can kind of control everything. We have our zone configurations. Again, going back to Dane's earlier video, it's really important to make sure you only have one schedule running per zone. You can see what schedules you have. When you click schedules here under the schedules tab, this is where you can delete a schedule and create a new one. So if you did want to implement a new flex monthly, you can delete an old one and add the new flex monthly based on that zone that you want to implement that schedule on. You can see what schedules are coming up. You can see, again, here in the irrigation, your usage, the historical water usage, and again, you can do the quick run. And again, this is going to the schedule menu. This is where you create those powerful schedules for your yard and for your zones. You can easily group zones into schedules. You can adhere to watering restrictions based on when you want that schedule to run. So ending before a specific time or starting at a specific time. And again, going back to Dane's original video, this is where the water duration comes in place. And this is where you can decrease the amount of time to help save in the watering restrictions. And then when you get to the zone menu, we do recommend that you take and upload a photo of each zone. So when your controller is first set up, it's going to ask you, okay, run zone 1, and you will find where zone is running, take a photo of that zone and implement that into the app. This will help you in future where you say, okay, it looks like, my zone 2, I know it's the backyard, or if you have a pro who's helping you with your yard, you can easily identify and communicate about what zones are needing more attention or any adjustments. What's really fantastic about our app is you have the ability to share your app with either a pro or maybe a family member if they're looking over your yard while maybe you're on vacation without any phone access. You don't want your phone, so you have someone doing it for you. You have, of course, this is your yard and you manage the security of it. You have 2 options: complete access, which is which we recommend to give to someone who's regularly going to be coming out to your yard. They're able to make adjustments or modifications to the settings based on what they're seeing in your yard. You as the owner, though, will always be able to track and see all the changes made in the history tab. The second option is our limited access. This is really one of those one-off times. Maybe you have someone coming over to do a quick fix and they just need a quick access to your app. You can do limited access and you can actually define an end date for them. However, at any time, because you are the owner of your app in your yard, you can always come in, whether they're complete access or limited, and remove them from your app. And what's really great is you can perform all the previous mentioned actions from our web app. It's app.rach.io. You use that URL to log into your app right there. So if your phone's run out of battery or you can't find it, you can always do it right from your laptop or your computer. All right, I'm handing it back over to Dane to discuss our zone attributes.
Thank you, Danielle. So we'll discuss zone attributes, as that was that common thread in our tips for success on setting up schedules. So if you can go to the next slide, we'll go right into vegetation types, since that's what we were actually, this is the thing that one of the things we were controlling when we were restricting that schedule, that flex monthly schedule earlier, when we were lowering the crop coefficient. Because those different plants have different water use rates, that crop coefficient is actually telling us how much water that plant uses. So the lower we set that rate, the less water it uses, the higher it is, the more frequently, the more often it needs to be watered. And then there's the root zone depth, which is how much access to water a plant has. You can think of that as the plant's water tank, or like a bucket. The deeper the roots, the deeper the bucket, so the longer it will need to be watered. Soil type will fit right into the will fit right into that. So that soil type with the vegetation, with that root depth, it's telling us how long that plant needs to be watered. The soil type is letting us know how well that water is stored in the soil with available water capacity, which is the advanced zone setting that the soil type that you choose is actually impacting. So it is important to choose the right soil. In a lot of areas, you're going to have the same soil as your neighbor. That might not always be the case. There are ways that you can tell what type of soil that you have through a soil test, but the soil type is telling us how much water can be stored and how much it will lose. And the nozzle type is telling us the precipitation rate. So precipitation rate is the advanced setting that the nozzle type affects, but you just really need to choose the nozzle type from the zone setup, which our wizard will walk you through. Now that precipitation rate is just how much water is coming out, and that's in inches an hour. So if we know how deep the roots are, and we know how much water is coming out, we know how long we need to water that zone for. And then efficiency is letting us know if there is an efficient distribution of that water across the zone. So typically, and it's at default 80%. If you don't have good efficiency, that means your nozzles, your sprinkler nozzles are not adjusted properly. So there's areas of the zone that lack coverage. If you did adjust that efficiency down, that's actually going to increase the duration. So I don't recommend adjusting efficiency. If you do have water distribution or water coverage issues, I do recommend that you actually get that checked out and have it repaired, as that is one of the wastes of water in irrigation is an inefficient system. But those are the two things that the nozzle type is going to tell us. And the shade setting tells us how much sun exposure that zone has, which lets us know if it is losing more water due to evaporation. So if you have a shaded backyard and a full sun front yard, and you input those into the app correctly, those zones will get more water where there's more exposure and less water where it's shaded. So it kind of acts as a tax on that zone's watering. And you can also set the slope. So there's a complicated graph on the screen, but really the most important thing to understand about slope is that's letting us know when runoff occurs. So the more of a slope there is, the less water is going to absorb successfully into the soil. So if we know the slope setting, we know how long we can run that zone for before runoff occurs, which does waste water. So inputting that slope correctly and making sure that you have Smart Cycle enabled, it's enabled by default, will help prevent that runoff water waste. But the slope is only impacting how we calculate the Smart Cycle to prevent runoff. It doesn't impact overall the total duration of the water use or the frequency of the schedule. It's just helping us prevent runoff and helping us prevent wasted water. So all of these attributes add up to form a concept of deep, infrequent watering. All of these attributes are very important when it comes to our flexible schedules, our flex monthly or our flex daily. You will see if you set up a flex monthly or a flex daily schedule, if you change those attributes, that will change how often the schedule is running and how long the schedule runs. It does impact fixed schedule settings, but on a fixed schedule, you are in control of the frequency So some of those settings are less important on the fixed schedule.
Thank you, Dane. And now I'm just going to briefly discuss the controller program that Rachio, Las Virgenes, and Valley Soil are offering to residents of Las Virgenes. So the website to register or to redeem your controller is go.rachio.com/LVMWD. We are offering a discounted smart sprinkler controller to residents of Las Virgenes. Our MSRP for a controller on our website right now is $199.99. We are offering a discounted Rachio controller for $99.99 plus tax. And with this, you will also receive a free professional installation by Valley Soil. So as soon as you come in and redeem your controller and pay for it, Valley Soil actually will contact you to schedule your appointment, and they will bring the controller to your home and do the installation there for you. The controller is set up specifically for your yard. Since it is a pro installation, it comes with a 4-year warranty. Typically, when you do DIY installations, it's a 2-year warranty. This is a limited time offer. So first come, first serve. The site is up right now. You can go there and claim your controller if you have not yet already. And here are some of our support resources. We have created a dedicated email and phone number for residents of Las Virgenes. The email address is lvmwd@rachio.com, and the phone number is 818-532-5366. We have a community page, which Dane spoke about a little bit before. We have customers that are huge fans of Rachio. They come in, they talk to each other about how they set their schedules, what they're doing. It's a great area to come in and just ask your questions and have other Rachio users, walk you through it. We also have our help center, support.rachio.com. You can always reach out to us at any time. Like I mentioned before, we have a YouTube channel. If you go there, you'll be able to view our hardware installation or Wi-Fi app setup and schedules overview as well. And at this time, we are going to take questions. I'm going to keep the page though on the support resources, just in case we don't get to your question. If you want to email or call us, you can absolutely do that. So Dane, why don't we start with some of these questions?
Yeah, great. And we've got 9 questions. I bet I can get to all of them before the hour's up. So the first question is any suggestion on how to configure a zone that is used to fill a swimming pool? Absolutely. You can set up a schedule. Well, you can configure a zone that is just your pool zone, just for your pool. And then you can set up a schedule that is for just that zone. I would recommend setting that the zone configurations are not going to matter so much as your own. You'll have to control the frequency and the duration of it. But if you choose a fixed schedule, you can set a daily interval, which allows you to set an interval anywhere from 1 watering every day to every 21 days, which is usually what I've seen with pool schedules is you were only watering that, every so often. So with that, that fixed schedule, you can go up to 21 days between waterings. And the next question, how do you switch from a flex monthly to a flex daily or to a fixed schedule? This is a great question. You can't actually change a schedule type for a single schedule. So if you wanted to switch to a different schedule, if you wanted to go to, say, a fixed schedule to a flex monthly schedule, I would recommend disabling the fixed schedule and then setting up a flex daily or a flex monthly. Or if you have all of your zones on a fixed schedule, you could do that one zone at a time approach. So you could go into the irrigation tab, go into zones, or go into the schedule, go into schedules, disable that zone from the schedule and put it on a flex daily schedule. But you cannot change the schedule type on an existing schedule. You have to set up a new schedule. And then how does the controller know what water levels are in our soil? Which is also similar to the other question, which is Rachio making determinations based on the information I entered in the app, or is there a sensor in the soil? There is not a sensor in the soil. It is making those determinations based on what you entered in the app, which is why those zone configurations are so important. So we are monitoring the soil virtually using what we know about the soil type, the nozzle type, the precipitation rate, and then we are doing real-time weather monitoring. So we are looking at how much water is being lost through evaporation. The next question is using Flex Daily, for example, for lawn zones. What to do the day of the week your gardener comes to mow. Water must not be wet before they arrive that day. How to make sure that day won't run. So if it's just a single day, and you know what day it's going to be, that makes it easy because then you can just remove that day from the allowed watering days. When you set up the schedule, you set what days it's allowed to water, and it needs at least 4 allowed watering days to make the right decisions to water optimally. So as long as there's 4 allowed watering days, it'll water fine. You can just remove that day from the schedule editor. If you don't know when that day is, you can set a watering delay in the app. And if you go to our support site, support.rachio.com, on the screen right there, you can type in water delay and you'll pull up an article that'll tell you how to set a water delay that you can set for up to 7 days so it won't water. Then what type of soil is typical for Calabasas? Does Dave or Steve want to answer that?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a nuanced answer, just because we do have a lot of topographic variability within the district. Sandy loam is probably a safe bet. However, if you just dig a shallow hole in your yard, fill it up with water, if it drains real quickly, then you have a sandy soil. If that water stays pooled in that hole for a period of time, then you have a more clay soil. But I think sandy loam would be a safe bet for the Calabasas area.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. And what he was just describing, if you go to support.rachio.com and you type in what type of soil do I have, we have an article that actually has some pictures on how to do that soil test. So Scott has a question. I currently have all 16 of my zones, many with different crop coefficients on their own Flex Daily schedule, and it's been working extremely well for months. If I put them on a single Flex Daily schedule instead, how might the watering regimen change, if at all? Which Flex Daily scheduling strategy is better? I'm glad that the Flex Daily schedule is working out great for you. It actually doesn't matter if you put each zone on its own Flex Daily schedule, or if all zones are on the same Flex Daily schedule. They will water the same. The soil moisture, the virtual soil moisture tracking that it's doing will look the same, whether it's on its own Flex Daily schedule or in a group with other zones on the Flex Daily schedule. So if it's working great, you don't need to change it. It's going to work the same either way you do it. And we are at the top of the hour.
Did we want to just get these last few, or do you want to?
Absolutely.
Is that okay? If people need a drop, you can go ahead and drop. Again, this is recorded, but if we want to just get to these last few, I think that I know some people might be waiting on some of the answers.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it, Dane. Since we are recording, if people do, as Danielle mentioned, need to drop off, then they can view the recording.
All right, great.
Yeah.
So the next question is, if a zone is on a fixed schedule, why wouldn't it always appear on the calendar? If a zone's on a fixed schedule, why wouldn't it always appear on the calendar? That is a great question. The only thing that I can think of is that schedule is disabled. That might not be the case. So if that doesn't answer your question, you should go ahead and email LVMWD@rachio.com. That's right on the screen there. because that's something that our support team can look into. We'd be happy to help you out with that. But that's the one thing that I can think of is that the schedule is disabled. The next question is, what is a good way to determine soil type and other details for setting up that zone? So Dave kind of answered that question earlier. We do have that support article. What type of soil do I have? That you can find by typing that in. Other details for setting up the zones. That's a good question. If you can't actually, if you don't know what it is, and sometimes if you move into a house, you might not know what type of vegetation that you have. You could contact a pro and have somebody help you identify those plant types the best that you can. If you take pictures of it, there are various forums where you can get help finding out what type of plant that you have. If you go to our community.rachio.com, got a lot of really smart users on there that can probably help you out with that stuff. So if you're trying to figure out other things like the nozzle type, looking on the nozzle, the sprinkler head that pops up, a lot of times it'll have a model number on it, so you can get those details. If you need to know the precipitation rate, which is what nozzle type is going to affect, and the efficiency, you can do a catch cup test. And if you go to our support site, support.rachio.com, we have instructions on how to do the catch cup test. So if you don't know what your zone attributes are, you can figure it out. You might need some help from our online community, though. You might have to do a little bit of research. You might have to go onto the yard to do some catch cup tests. Some of that, all of that stuff can be fun. So that's what I would recommend, is trying to figure out what kind of vegetation you have, trying to identify it with a professional or with an online community like community.rachio.com, doing a catch cup test to determine what your nozzle type is, and doing the soil test to determine what type of soil you have, and you'll be able to figure everything out.
Hey, Dan, I'll just add, there's a couple of pretty neat apps for helping to determine what vegetation type you have. There's one called Picture This, and then there's also one called Flora. With Picture This, if you take a picture of the leaf or flower, it will do its best to help to identify what that plant species is. So it's an easy first step if you're hoping to find out what your vegetation is.
That's a great suggestion. I actually, I kind of remember seeing that app. I think our vice president of product was showing me that. I think it uses machine learning, and if the machine learning can't figure it out, it sends it to a team.
Correct.
But yeah, that's awesome. So the next question, could I fill my pool with a flex daily schedule and a crop coefficient of 100? Just thinking of this now. Possibly. I don't know. I can't really answer the question because I don't know much about filling up a pool. I can tell you that on our community at community.rachio.com, one of the things that comes up, one of the topics that comes up in Texas is foundation watering. So in Texas, because of their clay soil, during the hot summer months, it can crack and morph and actually break their foundation. So typically, historically, they have to set up a specific zone, a drip line that waters the foundation, that keeps the foundation watered. There's actually an interesting thread on community.rachio.com where a user figured out how to configure a zone to water their foundation perfectly depending on the weather. So because usually you have to set up 4 different schedules for every season to change it. So anything is actually possible with our system, but I wouldn't know exactly how to do a pool on Flex Daily. So I'm on the Flex monthly schedule right now, and the calendar shows only 3 days for November. How is the schedule days determined? Okay, this is a really good question. This is one that typically we want to look into your account settings to give you a precise answer. And I'd recommend doing that, reaching out to our support team. But it is using that crop coefficient and your root depth to determine the number of days that it's watering. So if it's only watering 3 days for November, it might be a shrub or a tree zone, in which case it's got a crop coefficient of, if it's a shrub, it's got a crop coefficient of 50%, 0.5, and then it's got 15-inch roots. So that's telling us that that shrub doesn't need water that often, which is possibly what it is. So some of those settings might need to be adjusted. And if you reach out to our support team, they can help you out with that. But it is going to be using the crop coefficient and the root depth to determine how often it's watering. And then the next question is, I received a notice from Rachio about improving weather accuracy, but I needed to know my device. I didn't save the notice. How can I obtain more information? So what this sounds like is, it sounds like our weather intelligence weather station self-healing. And what happens there, and this is just what it sounds like you're describing, is that if the weather station that you're connected to ever goes down or ever stops reporting precipitation, we'll switch you to the next weather station. Or if a new station appears that's closer than your older station, we'll switch you to that station. It actually happens automatically. So if you got a notice that said there's a closer weather station, you're probably already connected to it. So that's what I would imagine that it is. But you can reach out to our support team and we can possibly find that email for you. All right, so the last question is, if I just set my coefficients from 55 to 38, what % reduction have I achieved? It would depend. So that is going to be whatever percentage reduction is 38 of 55, not necessarily a math person, but you can actually see what the impact is by looking at the calendar, looking at the schedule duration first, so you know how long that schedule waters when it does, and then looking at the calendar. So if you look at the calendar, you'll see the number of water drops, and then you can kind of figure out how much less it's watering throughout the total month.
All right. Well, thank you, Dane. Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate you guys spending the evening with us. I know that you guys are both out in Denver, so it's a little bit later out there for you than it is for us. So thank you again. I'd also like to thank all of our attendees. Thank you again for your interest in the program and efficient outdoor irrigation. If you do have any additional questions, this page here should be helpful for you, or feel free to reach out to myself, and I can certainly do my best to point you in the right direction as well. So thank you again. And please, if you do have any other questions, let us know. Otherwise, this presentation will be made available on our website. So it has been recorded. So if you wanted to review certain sections of the presentation again, you're able to do so at your leisure. And so thank you, everyone, and have a fantastic evening.
Thank you so much, Dave, for organizing this. We appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you all for attending.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.